I landed 2 hours early and didn't even tell the driver to hurry. I wasn't in a rush. Not in the usual sense. I just missed her. 11 years of marriage and I still wanted to surprise her. That had to count for something, right? The house was the same pale gray two-story we'd moved into the year after our wedding, the one with the hydrangeas Lauren insisted on planting even though I warned her they were high maintenance. Funny how they flourished anyway. The porch light was on even though it was barely dusk. She always forgot to turn it off. Or maybe she left it on just in case. Maybe for me. I parked around the block. Not to sneak around, but because I didn't want her seeing the headlights and ruining the surprise. It was a dumb little thrill like being the hero in a rom-com. As I walked up the path, suitcase wheels dragging behind me, I imagined her face when she saw me. Eyes wide, a hand over her mouth, followed by laughter and a hug that lingered a second too long. We'd order takeout, maybe fall asleep on the couch watching reruns of The Office. She used to laugh so hard at Dwight's beat farm bits. The front door was unlocked. I told myself it was nothing. She probably just ran out to the car and forgot to relock it. Still, my fingers hesitated on the knob. There was a weird quiet hanging in the air like a pause before something drops. I stepped inside. No music playing. No TV humming in the background. Just stillness. The kind that makes your ears ring. "Lauren." I called out gently, just loud enough to echo down the hall. No answer. I pulled my suitcase into the entryway and slipped off my shoes, letting them fall with a soft thud against the tile. The house smelled faintly of bergamot and whatever scented candle she liked that month. Everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. But something felt off. That's when I saw it. Her home office door was cracked open. The desk lamp was on, warm yellow light casting long shadows over the room. That alone wasn't strange. She worked late all the time. What stopped me was the bouquet. Fresh roses. Deep red. Perfectly arranged in a tall glass vase. Not from the grocery store either. These were the kind florists charge an arm and a leg for. I walked closer, drawn like gravity. At first, I thought maybe it was from a client. Or her boss. Something formal. But there was a card tucked just beneath the vase, its edge peeking out like a secret. I pulled it free. "Thank you for a perfect evening. Until next time. L." I stood there, reading it over and over. Until next time. Not good luck on the campaign or congrats on the deal. Just, until next time. My first instinct was denial. Some work friend? A project partner? Maybe someone with the same first initial? But no matter how many ways I tried to reframe it, the words didn't change. And the handwriting wasn't Lauren's. It was precise. Stylish. Masculine. I could tell from the way the L curved down sharply at the end. That's when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Quick. Light. Then she appeared in the doorway holding her phone in one hand, the other still brushing her hair behind her ear. Her face froze for a millisecond when she saw me. Not surprise. Not happiness. Something tighter. Like calculation. "You're back early," she said. Her voice didn't waver, but her eyes flicked to the flowers. Then the card in my hand. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Meeting's wrapped early. Thought I'd surprise you." She nodded like that made perfect sense. Like I hadn't just stumbled into something I wasn't supposed to see. I gestured with the card. "You get a visit?" She walked past me into the room like it was nothing. Took the card gently from my hand, glanced at it, then rolled her eyes. "Oh, that's from Liam," she said casually. "We worked on the product launch last month, remember? He's one of the senior consultants. A bit of a weirdo, honestly. We threw a wrap-up party yesterday and I guess he sent flowers to everyone. Not sure why they came here, though." I raised an eyebrow. Bit of a personal note for a professional bouquet. She gave me that sideways grin she used to flash when I accused her of stealing the covers. "He's like that. Dramatic. It's a running joke in the office. He signs everything with initials like he's in Gossip Girl or something." My mouth wanted to smile. My brain didn't buy a word of it. I nodded slowly. "Right?" She leaned against the desk, crossed one arm over her stomach. "Honestly, it's kind of creepy. I'll probably just toss them." But she didn't. She just stood there waiting for me to let it go. And I did. At least on the outside. Inside, something had shifted. A hairline crack that went deeper than it looked. I couldn't explain it. I didn't see anything definitive. But I felt it. Like walking into a room where someone's been talking about you and they all go quiet. That night, over dinner, she asked how the conference went. I told her about the keynote speaker and the flight delays. She laughed in the right places. She was present. Engaged. But something about the way she tilted her head felt studied, like she was mimicking the version of herself I expected to see. Later, while she showered, I stood in the hallway outside the bathroom door, listening to the water run. My suitcase was still by the front door. I hadn't even unpacked. In the bedroom, the flowers were gone. Vase and all. I opened the closet and saw her workbag tucked in its usual spot, nothing out of place. But the sense of unease was still there, gnawing like termites in the walls. I couldn't sleep. She curled up beside me like always, her back pressed against mine, breathing steady. But I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting every second between breaths. That stupid card kept flashing in my mind. Thank you for a perfect evening. Until next time. Who the hell was Elle? I didn't say a word. But I also didn't reach for her in the middle of the night the way I usually did when I couldn't sleep. Because that first lie? It had already done its job. It cracked something I didn't yet know how to fix. I told myself I was overthinking it. That's what people do when they're tired, right? They spiral. They pick apart moments until nothing feels solid anymore. That was me that whole next day, sitting in the kitchen with my coffee, watching Lauren float through the house like nothing had happened. She asked if I wanted eggs. I said no, stomach too tight. She smiled, made some for herself, and then disappeared into her office to take a team call. The roses didn't come up. The card didn't either. By noon, I found myself walking past the garbage bin just to see if she'd really thrown them out. Nothing. Just empty wrappers and paper towels. I peeked into the outside trash can when I took out the recycling. Still nothing. No flowers, no vase, no card. That's when the first real wave of discomfort hit me, not a red flag, but that creeping feeling in your gut like someone's looking at you from across a dark room. You can't see them, but you know they're there. She had lied. Maybe not big, but not small either. I spent that day pretending to work. My laptop sat open on the kitchen table, blinking with unread emails I couldn't focus on. My eyes kept drifting upstairs to the corner of the house where her home office was. I could hear the low hum of her voice through the vents. She was laughing once. I didn't recognize the tone. I used to love hearing her laugh. That day, it made me flinch. That night, she said she had a Zoom happy hour with her team and asked if I could give her some space for a couple hours. I nodded and retreated to the living room, but the whole thing felt choreographed. Like she knew I'd go along with it because I always did. I cracked a beer and stared at the blank TV screen. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a set, quiet, curated, filled with half-truths and soft lighting. Somewhere I wasn't meant to be. That night was the first I didn't sleep in our bed. She was already in there, curled up under the blanket, scrolling her phone like nothing was wrong. I stood in the doorway for a moment, unsure what to say, unsure what I was even feeling. "You coming?" she asked, glancing up. "I think I'll crash on the couch. My back's *ling me after the flight." She blinked, then nodded. "Okay. Feel better." And that was it. No questions. No confusion. Just an easy pivot into a new normal I hadn't agreed to. The couch didn't offer much comfort, but it gave me space to think. Not that I wanted to. My brain ran laps all night. I started collecting things in my mind. Not evidence, exactly, just moments. Small ones. The kind you wave off at the time but can't unsee later. The night she came home in a dress I hadn't seen before, one of those bold red ones she used to roll her eyes at in stores. I'd asked her where it came from. She said she saw it on sale and figured, why not? Or the Tuesday she said she was at the gym, but when I tried to call her, it went straight to voicemail, twice. She texted me an hour later saying she left her phone in the locker. Or that night we went out to dinner a month ago. We were halfway through dessert when I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. She smiled and said she must have left it near the sink when she washed her hands before we left. I nodded and moved on, but I remembered how it used to be glued to her finger. She hated the feeling of taking it off. Said it made her feel weird. Naked, she used to say. And then there was the text. 2 weeks before my trip, we were in the living room watching something, can't even remember what it was now, and her phone lit up beside her. Just for a second. I caught a glimpse of the message before she turned it face down and locked it. "I miss you already." No name. No context. She didn't react, didn't flinch. Just kept watching the screen like nothing had happened. I let it go. Told myself it was probably a group chat joke or something dumb from one of her girlfriends. But in that moment I remembered. And it didn't feel funny anymore. It all started stacking up. Each little inconsistency like a crack in the paint. You tell yourself it's fine, that every house has imperfections, but then one day the wall caves in and you realize the foundation's been rotting for years. Over the next few days, I watched more than I talked. She said she was going to the office late a lot, helping to wrap up a quarter-end campaign. I offered to bring her dinner once, just to surprise her again. She declined. "Too busy," she said. "You'd just be waiting in the car." I noticed she started dressing up more. Not just nice, deliberate outfits with purpose. Bright colors, fitted dresses, lipstick she hadn't worn in years. She used to joke about those shades being too much. Now they were her daily wear. One night, I watched her from the kitchen window as she waited in the driveway for her Uber. She checked her reflection in her phone, adjusted her hair, and smiled. Not the fake smile. Not the one she gave me lately. A real one. The kind you save for someone who makes you feel seen. The car pulled up and she was gone. I stood there in the dark, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. I should have confronted her. Asked questions. Made her explain. But instead, I started counting lies. That Sunday, I told her I was grabbing lunch with an old friend from college. There was no friend. I just wanted to see how she'd react. "Oh, have fun," she said, barely looking up from her tablet. "Tell James the first said hi." James doesn't exist. That's when I realized how easy it is to lie in a relationship once silence becomes the currency. When both people start trading in half-truths and emotional receipts, there's no need for confrontation. Just a quiet, mutual agreement to avoid shattering the illusion. I didn't want to become that guy. The one checking her phone while she slept or tracking receipts. But I couldn't let it go. I started noticing her patterns. Her phone never left her side anymore. She started locking it, something she hadn't done in years. She turned off notifications, or at least the ones that used to pop up on her lock screen. The tension in the house was invisible but unbearable. Every room felt smaller. Every conversation felt like a script we'd rehearsed too many times. And still, I said nothing. Until the day she mentioned Portland. Just a short trip, she said over coffee, like she was talking about picking up dry cleaning. Couple of client meetings. "I'll be back in 2 days." I nodded. Sounds good. But something in her tone didn't match the story. It was too casual. Too effortless. That night, I stared at the ceiling again, sleep miles away. My eyes drifted to the faint outline of her suitcase near the closet. It was already half-packed. That's when I remembered the emergency tracking app we'd set up years ago. One of those just-in-case things. Neither of us had used it since. But I still had the login. I didn't open it right away. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, heart hammering like a drumbeat in my ears. What was I even looking for? And if I found it, what would I do? The morning she left for Portland, I played it cool. Sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee, scrolling through emails that didn't matter. She came downstairs in jeans and a soft black sweater, one I hadn't seen before. Her makeup was done just enough to look effortless. Hair curled. Casual, but too polished for just meetings. "You sure you don't need a ride?" I asked. She smiled. "No, it's fine. I already scheduled an Uber." Of course she had. She kissed me on the cheek, light, like muscle memory, and grabbed her suitcase. "I'll text when I land," she said, already halfway out the door. I waited exactly 4 minutes before grabbing my phone. The tracking app loaded slowly. I hadn't used it in over a year, and part of me hoped it wouldn't even work. Maybe it would crash or ask for a password I couldn't remember. But it opened. Her little location pin blinked into view. It didn't move for a while, then began to slide across town toward the interstate. I followed it with my eyes. It veered west, away from the airport. I stared at the screen, frozen. She wasn't heading toward Portland. Not even close. She was driving straight toward a patch of forest 2 hours outside the city. No hotels. No business centers. No conference halls. Just cabins. I sat there for a long time, debating what to do. My heart thudded like a warning drum. I could have stayed home. Pretended I never checked. Let her lie and kept living in the shell of our marriage. But I'd already crossed that line. There was no pretending anymore. I grabbed my keys. The drive felt longer than it was. 2 hours through winding roads, every turn tightening the knot in my stomach. I didn't even turn on the radio. The silence in the car mirrored what I felt inside, this dull, hollow echo that filled every inch of me. I didn't really have a plan. I wasn't sure what I'd do when I got there. Scream? Demand answers? I didn't even know what I wanted to hear. I just knew I couldn't live with guesses anymore. Her pin stopped moving about 15 minutes before I arrived. It sat there still, nestled in a private road just off the highway, surrounded by pine trees and hills. I pulled up slowly, staying back far enough not to be seen. The cabin was modern. Sleek. Big windows. The kind you'd pick if you wanted nature to be a backdrop to your weekend escape. And there she was. Inside. I saw her before I even stepped out of the car. She stood near the fireplace, wine glass in hand, her laugh muted through the window but unmistakable. I didn't recognize the man with her, tall, probably mid-30s, with dark hair and the kind of confidence that moves without apology. He poured more wine into her glass and she leaned in to whisper something, her hand grazing his chest. She touched him like she knew every inch of him. No work bags. No laptop. No paperwork on the table. Just a bottle of red wine, soft jazz humming from somewhere inside, and two people wrapped in a quiet, private world where I did not exist. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't march up to the door or break the glass or bang on the window like some betrayed husband in a movie. I just sat there and filmed. I raised my phone with numb hands and started recording. Not because I planned to use it in court or show it to friends or blow up her life. I don't even know why, really. Maybe because I needed something real, something tangible. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That the gut feeling I'd been swallowing for weeks wasn't paranoia. It was truth. The camera caught it all. Her laughter. His hand brushing her hip. The soft kiss he pressed to her forehead while she sipped wine like nothing in the world could hurt her. And me? I felt nothing. No rage. No shock. No heartbreak. Just a vast, terrible emptiness. Something inside me had already snapped days ago. This was just the echo of the break. I watched them for another 5 minutes. I couldn't take more than that. My chest felt tight, like I was wearing a shirt that didn't fit anymore. I lowered the phone, dropped it on the passenger seat, and started the car. I didn't look back. The drive home felt unreal. Like I was floating above the road, not touching it. The lights blurred. The trees passed in a smear of green and gray. My hands stayed at 10 and 2. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. When I got home, the first thing I did was delete her access to our shared location app. Then I pulled our photo off the fridge and tossed it into the drawer with the pens and coupons and junk we never sort. Then I started packing. Not a dramatic movie-style exodus. Just quiet. Efficient. A duffel bag with essentials. A few shirts. Jeans. My old shaving kit. I didn't write a note. Didn't turn off the lights. I left everything else behind, the house, the marriage, the history. All of it. I got in the car and drove until the city turned into suburbs, then into dark rural highway. I found a cheap motel just outside the state line. Cash only. No questions. The room smelled like bleach and air freshener, and the bed was stiff, but it was quiet. Blissfully quiet. The kind of quiet you can sit inside and not feel judged or watched or lied to. I collapsed onto the bed fully dressed. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was something. I pulled out my phone and rewatched the video. Not out of masochism, but clarity. To make sure it had happened. That I hadn't imagined it all. Every second confirmed what I already knew. She hadn't just cheated. She had moved on. Emotionally. Physically. Probably months ago. I just hadn't been invited to the exit. I left the video in a locked folder. Not to use it. Not to send it. Just to keep myself from slipping into denial later. Sleep didn't come easily. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the moments that now made sense. All the times she kissed me but didn't look me in the eye. The sudden laughter from a text she wouldn't show me. The nights she claimed to be tired but scrolled her phone with that strange little smile. She wasn't just hiding a man. She was hiding a second life. And I had been the set piece. The placeholder. The quiet background music she turned down whenever he walked into the room. That realization didn't make me hate her. It made me hate myself. For trusting. For staying quiet. For giving her the benefit of the doubt when I should have trusted my gut. But more than that, it made me realize something simple and devastating. I didn't lose my marriage. I'd already lost it. I just didn't notice until the door was already closed. I didn't leave the motel room the next day. Not for breakfast, not for air. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the scuffed wood of the nightstand, the faded painting of a mountain lake hanging crooked on the wall. My bag was still half unzipped on the floor. I hadn't even unpacked my toothbrush. It was like my body had arrived, but my mind hadn't caught up. At some point I opened the curtains just to prove to myself it was morning. Sunlight spilled in through the grimy window and I thought, this should hurt more. But it didn't. Not yet. No screaming. No collapse. No cinematic rage. Just this dull, detached ache sitting somewhere behind my ribs like a clock ticking inside an empty house. I opened my phone and tapped the folder labeled video. It was still there. 32 seconds long. No sound. No zoom. Just enough clarity to make it undeniable. I watched it again. Then I watched it once more. And after that I deleted it. Not because I didn't believe what I'd seen, but because I didn't need it anymore. The moment she leaned into that man's chest, she made a choice. And I had finally made mine. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to wait for some confession that came too late. I wasn't going to be the guy who clings to a ghost. By noon, I was back in the car, not driving anywhere in particular. Just moving. I passed the town line, then another. Gas station signs and roadside diners blurred past the windshield. Eventually, I ended up in the parking lot of a bookstore cafe, some small-town place with creaky floorboards and mismatched chairs. I ordered coffee and took a seat by the window, watching people pass by like nothing in their world had cracked open. There was a comfort in that anonymity. No one knew who I was. No one cared. I was just another face staring out the window. I opened my phone again and scrolled through old pictures. Lauren in a sun hat, laughing on the beach. Lauren holding up a burnt pie she tried to bake from scratch. Us on our 5th anniversary, pretending to be fancy at some overpriced bistro. I kept scrolling. One by one. Each photo a little heavier than the last. And yet, they didn't make me cry. They just made me feel like I was watching someone else's life. That afternoon, I sent a message to my office saying I needed to extend my leave by a few days. No explanation. Just a clean, professional note. My manager responded with a thumbs-up emoji and a take all the time you need. It felt surreal how easy it was to disconnect from that part of my life. By nightfall, I found another motel. Nicer this time. Clean sheets. Warm lighting. The kind of place couples go when they want to escape, not unravel. I didn't sleep much. But at least I didn't dream. The next morning, I turned off our shared calendar. Disabled our Spotify family plan. Logged into the shared grocery list app and deleted everything. Stupid things, really. But it felt like pulling cords out of a machine that had already shut down. I needed to disconnect thread by thread. Around noon, I realized I hadn't eaten in almost a day. I stopped at a diner, one of those places with peeling menus and refillable coffee. The waitress smiled at me like I was just a regular guy passing through. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like pretending. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just a man drinking bad coffee in a quiet booth, trying to remember how to breathe. I stayed there for hours. I brought out a notebook and made a list, not of tasks, but of memories. Things I didn't want to forget. Not because they were painful, but because they were real ones. I owed myself that. Like the time we adopted a stray kid off the porch and named him Marbles. Or how she used to make playlists for every trip, always putting that one Brandi Carlile song at the end. Or how she'd fall asleep during movies and pretend she wasn't, murmuring, "I'm just resting my eyes," even though she was snoring. I didn't write these down out of nostalgia. I wrote them down to close the chapter properly. Not with anger. Just with clarity. Later that day, I went back to the motel and made a call I'd been putting off. Not to Lauren. To my older sister, Claire. We hadn't talked much in the past year. Life, distance, excuses. But when she answered and I heard her say, "Hey, what's up?" something in me cracked a little. "I think I need a place to stay for a while," I said. She didn't ask questions. "When can you get here?" "Tomorrow." "Done. I'll make up the guest room." That was it. No lectures. No pity. Just a soft, open door. I felt something catch in my throat as I hung up. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to say, "You're not crazy. You can come home." Back in the room, I finally took a shower. Let the hot water beat down on me until my skin turned red. I looked at myself in the fogged mirror, messy hair, hollow eyes, the kind of stubble that doesn't look rugged, just tired. I looked like someone I didn't recognize. And weirdly, that felt okay. Because I didn't want to be the man I was before. The one who ignored the signs. Who smiled through discomfort. Who loved someone more than he loved his own instincts. That version of me had been slowly eroding for months. I just hadn't seen it. Now, all I felt was the cold honesty of it all. No fire. No fury. Just silence. But even silence tells you something. It tells you the war is over. And all that's left is what you choose to rebuild. She found me. I don't know how exactly, maybe a bank charge, maybe some digital breadcrumb I forgot to erase, but on the third day, just as I was about to check out of the motel, she showed up. I saw her car pull in from the window. Same silver SUV, same clumsy parking job, crooked in the lines. For a moment, I wondered if I was dreaming. She stepped out wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair tied back like she hadn't slept, like she'd been crying, but not too much. I stood frozen, one hand still on the zipper of my duffel bag, watching as she walked straight toward the front office. She didn't look around, didn't hesitate. She knew exactly where I was. When the knock came on the door, it was soft. Careful. Like she was afraid of waking something up. I didn't answer at first. Another knock. "Alex," she said through the door, voice tight. "Please. Can we talk?" I opened the door slowly. Her eyes flicked up to mine. Relief. Fear. Something else too, like she was trying to rehearse the scene in real time. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked in, looked around the small room, the unmade bed, the half-eaten granola bar on the desk. I could feel her taking it all in, seeing how far I'd unraveled in just a few days. She sat on the edge of the chair like it might bite her. You didn't tell me you were leaving, she said quietly, folding her hands in her lap. I closed the door, leaned against the wall, and waited. She looked up. I came home and you were just gone. Yeah, I said. That was the point. She swallowed hard. Alex, you don't get to start with my name like that, I said flatly. She blinked. Silence. Then she tried again. I know this looks bad, but I swear it's not what you think. I laughed. I didn't mean to, but it slipped out dry and bitter. Right? You and some guy at a cabin in the woods. Drinking wine. Embracing. That's what, exactly? Team building? Her face flushed. That's not fair. No? I tilted my head. Tell me what's fair, Lauren. Because I'd love to hear it. She stood suddenly like movement would give her back control. His name is Liam. He's an old friend. We go way back college. He's been through a lot lately. Divorce. Some health stuff. I went there to help him decompress after a conference. That's all it was. You don't go to a forest cabin to decompress from a work event, Lauren. You go there to disappear. She shook her head, biting her lip. You're twisting this. No, I'm finally seeing it clearly. She paced once across the room and stopped at the window. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't mean to get caught, I said. That hit her. I saw it in the way her shoulders dropped, the way her breath caught. But she didn't deny it. Instead, she turned around, arms crossed, eyes wet but sharp. So what now? You just run away? Throw everything out over a misunderstanding. My chest tightened. That word, misunderstanding, made my blood simmer. I stepped forward, voice low but firm. You think this is about one lie? One night? She didn't answer. You think I haven't seen the way you've changed? You think I didn't notice the late nights, the text messages, the ring you left at the gym? My voice cracked. I gave you every chance to be honest. Every out. And you smiled in my face while building a second life behind mine. I was confused, she said softly. Things haven't felt right between us for a long time. And you never said a word. I didn't want to hurt you. No, I said. You didn't want to lose the version of your life where you got to feel adored at home and reckless somewhere else. That silenced her. She sat down again, rubbing her hands together like she could scrub the guilt off. I still love you, Alex. I stared at her. You love me. She nodded. Yes. No, I said. You loved the version of me who didn't know. Who didn't ask questions. Who bought the lies and didn't check the app. She looked away, tears spilling now. I kept going. Not out of cruelty, but because I needed her to hear it, really hear it. You used my loyalty as camouflage. And the second you thought I might be watching, you started spinning stories. She said nothing. I'm leaving, I said quietly. And I need you not to follow me again. Alex, please. No. You don't get to cry and call that redemption. You want forgiveness? Earn it. Somewhere far away from me. She stood up slowly. For a second, she looked like she might argue. But then she saw the look in my eyes, how done I was, and her lips parted with nothing behind them. She nodded barely. I'll go, she whispered. She walked to the door, hand hovering on the knob. You're not a bad person, Lauren, I said as she opened it. But you made choices. And now you have to live in them. She flinched. Then she left. I stood there long after the door clicked shut, staring at the space where she'd been. There were no goodbyes. No second chances. Just silence. And silence, I've learned, is the most honest sound there is.